In this video today, I want to cover how I look at CMO strategy from end to end. This is going to be breaking down everything that I do on a daily basis and have done just as a CMO for a $4 million company over the last year. So I'm going to start out with covering key metrics I watch on marketing, move on to key metrics I watch on sales, and lastly, you're going to want to stay till the very end because I'm going to be covering how I look at things at a high level, the biggest needle movers and levers that you can pull as a CMO to really increase business as a whole. So I'm going to share my screen and let's dive right in. So first and foremost, as a CMO, there's a handful of metrics. A lot of this comes down to metrics tracking, in my opinion. So there's a handful of metrics you want to be looking at every single day to make sure that your company's really optimized. So let's break down each of these. So first, leads. How many leads do we have coming in on a daily basis? I have KPIs surrounding, how many leads we need to hit our revenue goals, hit our projections on the sales side. So next, not just leads, but cost per lead. Obviously, we can't allow cost to spiral out of control. We need to make sure we're keeping it so it's profitable. So maintaining usually some sort of set cost per lead. A lot of times, I don't want to throw out metrics because it varies from industry to industry, but a lot of times for clients of mine, I'll set, say, a $50 cost per lead, target cost per lead more so, and we want to stay below that. So leads, cost per lead. Next, calls booked. So one of your main jobs as a CMO is making sure that the sales team is always as booked out as possible, making sure that every spot, every opening on the calendar for all, however many sales reps you have is completely booked out. So we have a set KPI surrounding how many calls we're getting on a booked on a daily basis. And similar to leads, we also have that in terms of cost per booked call. So we're going to set a target number for that. Say, a lot of times for me on the B2C side for clients, it'll be, say, $300. That's kind of our target cost per book call. Sub $300 is what we're shooting for. If we're going above that, that's going to really damage our profitability. So next, this is more so on the sales side, but cash collected. How much cash are they collecting on a daily basis? I don't really like to look at contracted revenue. I'm not going to open up a whole rabbit hole on that, but contracted revenue a lot of times is not actual revenue. People ditch on payment plans, people charge back, whatever it is. I like to look strictly at cash collected and make decisions off of that. Next, recurring revenue. So this helps to get kind of the full financial picture, so that we're not just seeing the front end, but we're also seeing what we can expect on the recurring side. Add them together, look at total revenue on usually a monthly basis. In this case, I like to look at things month to month. If you're, say selling something like very, very high ticket, like enterprise software or something, you probably want to go quarterly or even annually. My brother, for example, sells medical devices, so he'll sell multiple seven-figure deals. So a lot of times he looks at more of an annual basis for his, but for me personally, I like looking at total revenue monthly. Cost per acquisition, that's next. How much does it cost for us to acquire a client? Very important metric on the marketing side. And lastly, front end ROAS. So what's our return on ad spend on the front end? I like to look at it first month. So if we spend, say, $100,000 on Facebook ads this month, what's our return on that? If we're getting $200,000 back, that would be a 2x ROAS, for example. So we're going to take these. So each of these metrics here, I want to take these and break them down by channel. So this is going to depend on your business, of course, but I'd like to have really three main channels that I follow. So one, ad platform. So a lot of times this is Facebook ads or YouTube ads or TikTok ads, whatever it is. Next, email. My main background is actually in email marketing. I know a lot about email marketing, done it for probably four or 5 years now. So email is not dead, depending on, according to what other people say, that may be the case. They're wrong. I make a lot of money through email for all of my clients. So this is still a major platform and will be for the foreseeable future. And then lastly, organic. So this could be Instagram, in my case here, YouTube, TikTok. Basically So we have the ads platform, ads are running, we've got email, and then we have organic. So I'm going to break down each of these on each platform. So for example, if we're running Facebook ads, like how many leads do we have coming in through Facebook ads? How many booked calls do we have coming in through Facebook ads? What's our cash collected on Facebook ads? And then like recurring revenue, how much is coming specifically from Facebook ads? Same with, we'll calculate our cost per acquisition and our front end ROAS specifically on Facebook ads. Now, a lot of these are a little bit different in terms of, like, for example, I don't really get leads from email marketing. The leads are already like in the email list in this case, so we're really just booking calls. So I do vary it a little bit. Our cost per acquisition, for example, is going to be obviously drastically lower on email marketing than it is on Facebook ads because you're not really paying much of any cost other than, say, like your email copywriter, your email service provider fees. It's not like you're pumping money in ads. Same with organic. Obviously, you have to pay overhead for your team, but as a whole, like your cost per acquisition, your front end ROAS, going to be pretty solid on these two platforms. That's more so applicable to the ad side. However, you have to look at email marketing and organic is in a lot of ways a function of reducing overall cost per acquisition because a lot of the costs are incurred on ads. That's a whole other topic for a different video. That's very lot to unpack there, but basically I'm looking at all of this by channel. Okay, so let's keep it going here. So yeah, we'll have kind of targets for each of these. We'll have targets for individual people on the team too. So as a CMO, a lot of times you're managing individual people. So I'll be managing a media buyer for our Facebook ads. I'll be managing an email marketer for our email team. And usually like a creative director on the organic side. So we'll set specific benchmarks that we're trying to hit for each of these. Like, let's say I'll have a projection. So that's kind of like worst case scenario. We're going to hit this amount on this channel. Like, for example, I might say worst case scenario, our projection for email marketing is 50 calls booked this month. Realistically, our goal, the number we're really trying to hit is about a third higher than that. So it'll be something like, I suck at math, but something like 70, approximately 65, 70. And we'll do that across the board. So that's pretty much it on these. I can get a lot more granular on this, but that's a little bit out of the scope of this. If you want to check that out, definitely subscribe to my personal email list. I'll throw the link in the bio for that, so it's a little bit more in depth. So next from here, I want to move on to the sales side. So controversial opinion here, but if you're a CMO, you've got to know sales. I would say, like, I worked in sales for a couple of years before moving on to the marketing side. And if you don't understand to a very solid degree, like how a sales team operates, what salespeople need to get the best results, how they think, also how like a sales director thinks or a sales team manager, it's going to be really hard to succeed as a CMO if you don't have that piece of the puzzle. Like I would say for this type of stuff here, like I can kind of do this in my sleep. This stuff's, it's not that hard in my opinion. I would say the harder part is working with sales teams effectively and making sure that they've got their bases covered. A lot of marketers can't do that in my opinion. And I think that if you can bridge that gap, if you can help bring sales and marketing together, because they're two entities which are usually very disjointed. A lot of companies lose out on a ton of money because sales and marketing can't talk to each other. They can't be on the same page. If you as a CMO can bring these two together, keep communication and feedback loops very strong, there's a lot of money in there. I personally would consider myself to be a good but not world-class marketer and a good but also not world-class salesperson. But the fact that I'm able to do both and understand both sides, I think that makes me a lot more dangerous. So if you're a CMO, I highly recommend like really getting deep in the weeds on how sales teams work, because if you understand that, it makes you much more effective. So I'll leave it at that. So as a CMO, you really have to stay on top of the sales team because, if you don't, things will be bad. So I track a couple of these metrics every single day. Similar to how I have these metrics on marketing, these are the metrics on sales. So Number one, sets. How many out of your setters, like how many calls are they setting for the sales team? Show rate. So out of those sets that the setters have done, how many of them are actually showing up? Like if my setter Thomas, if he sets 5 calls for my closer Josh tomorrow, out of those 5, how many of them actually showed up? If 3 out of 5 showed up, we're at a 60% show rate, which is okay, I'd say. Okay, so calls taken, that's kind of a function of show rate. So, Josh took 3 calls today. Offers made. This is, offers made, that's an interesting metric because I would say this is a function of the aggression of your sales team, but also your lead quality. It's kind of a mix of both of those. A lot of times if your offers made percentage on the sales team is low, that means, your salespeople, they might be in a bit of a rut. They may be kind of lacking confidence a little bit. By offers made, I mean, like, did they pitch the actual offer? If I'm selling marketing agency services for roofers and my closer hops on, takes the call, runs discovery, and pitches, say, okay, we will offer Facebook ads for you on a monthly basis for $3,000 a month. Do you want to move forward with this? Like something like that, If they're taking a lot of these calls and not making the offers, it could be the salespeople are in a rut, or it could just be your lead quality is just complete trash, really, really bad. Obviously, if you do Facebook ads for roofers and a dentist comes through your funnel, you're not going to be making offers on that realistically. And that's not your salesperson's fault. That is your marketing team's fault because lead quality is bad. And it's also partially your setter's fault because they should have DQ'd those people. So, offers made, that's an interesting one. That comes down to marketing qualified leads, in my opinion, which is a topic for another video. But this is going to be a part of, I'll probably make several more videos with this, so we can cover that later. So closes, okay, so if we take 3 calls in a day, if my closer takes 3 calls today, how many of them closed? If it's 1, then we're at, say, for that given day, we're at a 33% close rate, which is pretty solid. I'd be happy with that personally. And then cash collected. So this would be how much cash you collected on those closes. So if we are, say, selling something for $10,000 up front, we have a 50% upfront cash collection rate. That means we've cash collected $5,000 upfront on that one close for the day. Let's project that out for a month. So that would be, if we can sustain those numbers over the course of a month, let's assume 20 business days, that would be $25,000 closes or $100,000 a month in revenue or in cash collected. So I am going to track these for pretty much every single person on the team. So like we have to divide this by setters. These are more setter metrics, and then these are closer metrics. So this is partially your sales manager's job, your director of sales, whatever the title is, but it's also, I view it as a CMO as you need to be managing this as well because, honestly, a lot of sales managers are not on top of these things, and you're going to lose money if you don't do it. So I know there's a lot of work, but it's super important, and I think it makes you a lot of money if you're able to do it. So that's this is sort of like the busy work, I'd say, CMO type busy work. So obviously you have your busy work, but you also have kind of your big picture type of stuff. The really more kind of zoom out a little bit, get out of like what you're doing on a daily day-to-day basis and think, all right, big picture, how can you really move the needle? So there are really 3 main things for this that I like to do. So number 1, that's offer strategy. One thing I've kind of just picked up over the years is a lot of times like what you're selling it's so important. What you're selling, the way you structure it. I used to sell loans, for example. I got my start in sales selling loans. Loans is a great example of it is an evergreen offer that will never go out of style. People will always need loans. People will always be broke, and people will always need to get money to pay their bills, because they have cash flow issues. This is for consumers, this is for businesses. Loans are never going to be a bad offer, versus something else like, say, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But there are a lot of offers out there which are simply not very good. Like short form content, for example. I think short form content, I know a lot of people who sell it. It's easy to fulfill on. For example, like I think that if you're like an 18-year-old kid, you're just trying to get started and you just want to start making some cash, I think it's a good place to make some money right now. Long term, do I think it's like a good offer to sell? Not really. I think like I edit these videos with a platform called Descript, and it's pretty easy for me to do. I don't really like editing videos, but at the same time, like, I can do it in 3 minutes, so I'm probably not going to delegate it out and pay someone to do it. So strategizing on good offers is very important, and I think it's a good skill set to have that takes a little bit of time. So a lot of offer strategy, in my opinion, comes down to the CMO. And I think offer strategy is also heavily dependent on your pulse on the market. You need to have a very strong pulse on the market. What's the market feeling right now? What kind of problems are they facing? What is like actively going on in their mind that is they either really want this or this thing's really pissing them off. It's a major pain point for them. If you can understand those things, understand that pulse on the market to a high degree, which a lot of that comes from communication from the salespeople, then your offer strategy as a CMO should be really solid. Like, for example, one thing I've kind of spotted over these last couple of months is one of the biggest issues for all of my clients across the board, show rate. Show rate is a very painful, frustrating problem that is costing people enormous amounts of money. A lot of people are facing a 50% show rate on ads right now, which is just really frustrating for them. If you're paying $300 per booked call, you're spending, $100,000 a month on Facebook ads, and you're getting a 50% show rate. A lot of times salespeople are not really good at resurfacing these prospects. So you, as a business owner, you're effectively flushing $50,000 every single month down the drain. That works out to about $600,000 a year in just money kind of wasted, and I'm not even going to talk about opportunity cost on how much you could be making on that, because that part sucks even more. But show rate is a very painful problem right now. Because of that, I put together a free school group breaking down a strategy I used to get 100% show rate for clients of mine. I'll drop a link in the comments to that. It's free. It's like a 13-minute training. Highly recommend checking that out. But that would be an example of offer strategy. That comes down to like kind of pulse on the market. It's not necessarily like marketing talent, copywriting talent, writing good headline, things like that. It's more of a pulse on the market type of thing. So if you can understand like what kind of offers not only work just evergreen long term, but right now, right now in July 2024, what is hot? What is painful? What do people want? That is offer strategy. And I would say that's one of the most important things you can do as a CMO. Okay, so next one is hiring and delegation and training. So client acquisition as a whole, not an easy field to hire. I haven't really hired people in areas outside of sales and marketing other than my virtual assistant. But as a whole, like, this is not a group of people that's easy to hire. Hiring copywriters, for example, copywriters kind of suck. A lot of copywriters just are not very good, So finding them in the first place, that's like a recruiting thing. Like, how do you find good talent? Next would be the delegation aspect of it. Like, how can you actually pass things, train people, and delegate to them? Like, how can you get people that you've hired to a place where it takes work off of your plate? Ideally you want to have, like, as a CMO, you want to have things like this. You want these to just be steady on all of these platforms, on sales and marketing. You want all of these to be very, very steady because you are good at delegating. Because your media buyer, your copywriter, your media buyer, your content team, your setters, your closers, you want them to be pretty on point so that, you check in on them daily, of course, but as a whole, they're hitting their numbers. So that way you can focus on the bigger picture shit, like hiring more people, or like offer strategy, or marketing assets, which is the next thing I'm going to move on to after this. But hiring people is hard. It's not easy, in my opinion. I've hired a handful of people this year who've kind of flopped, to be honest, and I've hired a couple that have done really well. But, it costs a lot of money to hire people. If it doesn't work out, it's very expensive, depending on what you are hiring for. both from a salary standpoint and from an opportunity cost standpoint. But if you can get really good at like effective hiring, effective delegation, effective training, honestly, I would say this is probably the single most high ROI skill in the entire world. If you look at like Jeff Bezos, for example, one of his kind of things he's just been known for is building really good systems so that he's been able to scale to obscene numbers. Amazon is one of the biggest companies in the world. And I would attribute a lot of that to their ability to effectively hire, cultivate leaders within the company, and just scale really fast. So that's all I got for this. But if you can hire effectively on a marketing team, a lot of CMOs are stuck as this kind of like hustler CMO. They're like basically the entire marketing team. That'll work to a certain degree. I will put that cap right around like a $3 to $5 million a year run rate. But eventually you've got to hire effectively. You've got to hire a marketing team out, and that's not easy to do. But as a CMO, if you can do it, you can definitely scale to some really big numbers. I've seen it happen a handful of times before, so this is a really important skill to cultivate. So lastly, marketing assets. So I'd like to divide marketing assets into a few key areas. So for example, you have kind of your day-to-day busy work. For example, writing broadcast emails. Broadcast emails are kind of busy work. You have to do them pretty much every day or 4 days a week. For my clients, I send emails 4 days a week, and then I have the automations running at any given time. Same with content. Doing IG posts, IG reels, that's kind of busy work. I wouldn't really consider those to be marketing assets. Marketing assets, in my opinion, are areas where you make them once, and then you tweak them over time, but you're just plugging money into them. Your main marketing assets, I would say, would be things like a VSL. For clients, I'll do a VSL. It depends on the client, I'd say, but I might do a full revamp on the VSL, maybe like 3 times a year, every couple months, maybe every 4 months, 3 or 4 months. For the most part, it's you build it once, you make it really, really fucking good, and then you're just spending money on it. It's more of a game of capital allocation. We're going to spend X amount of money on this VSL. And then we'll make tweaks to it over time. We'll change the lead, we'll change the first 5 seconds, add in a little bit of B-roll, maybe tweak up the offer a little bit to make it more timely. But as a whole, like the VSL, a lot of times if it's working, it's working. We're going to keep spending on it. We're going to scale it to the moon. So VSL is probably your main marketing asset. Next, you have ads. Again, ads are kind of similar in the sense like if ads are working, if we're getting the right type of people into our ecosystem, a lot of times that's a function of the ad. It's like that's the first place where you're picking people off of social media and bringing them into your ecosystem. So if ads are working, we'll just tweak them over time, but as a whole, we're going to keep running them because if it's working, it's working. I'm not going to cut it. And I would also throw in an email autoresponder. I have a pretty proven email autoresponder that makes an enormous amount of money for my clients. I'd say it's made a couple mil this year alone. I'm not going to reveal that on this video. If you want to get access to that, you're going to have to hire me and my team. But you have like a welcome sequence for email for when people opt into the VSL that is cherry picking people off that didn't book on the VSL. So these are your main assets. Now, this is more of a function of like if I'm looking at these 3, I don't really know how to describe the skill set behind offer strategy. I'd say it's just a function of like, do you have strong pulse on the market? That's a skill in itself. Hiring, delegation / training. Again, this is not really marketing talent. This is more so, I'd say a lot of it's your people skills, your ability to work with people. A lot of marketers are not good at people skills. So like leading teams, reading people to see if they're going to be a good employee, getting them to effectively kind of like do their job, do what you need them to do. That's more people skills. When it comes to building good marketing assets, this is just true like raw marketing talent. Your ability to write a really good VSL, that's just marketing talent. I know a couple really high-end copywriters that just sell VSLs, for example, that just operate in freelance capacity. That just comes down to like, can you write a good VSL? Can you write a good ad? Can you write a good email? So a lot of people can't do this. I think a lot of people talk a big game about their ability to, like, I'm working on it for sure, but it's definitely a work in progress for me. So these are kind of the main things that you can do as a CMO to really, really move the needle. So this is a wide variety of skill sets, like I said before, but if you can do these things well, then you're going to be in a pretty good spot. So that's pretty much it for today. I know this is a long-winded video, but hopefully this is helpful. And I've got some more videos coming your way on follow-ups to this because there's a lot that goes into CMO strategy, but that is it for now.